like Miami. Miami, 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 Miami. It feels like Miami.
Welcome to the Heat Beat Podcast. I'm your host, Giancarlo Navas, and with me today, our Saucy Nuggets insider, Lefty Leif. You can hear him on 5 on the Floor or on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. My dog, welcome home. How you doing?
Feeling great because I'm on this show talking about what we're about to talk about. So I'm feeling good. And I get the pleasure to be on the same episode as the other, your other guest of the show. I don't often get to interact with my friend Rohan. We get to come on here and do our thing, and that's what's up. I'm excited about this show.
I'm so pumped, Leif. We got Rohan Nadkarni of Sports Illustrated. Last week, we had Rohan Kati from the Yairo Step. So we're doubling up on Rohan's, these pods.
Whoa.
There's another one.
Rohan on the show?
There's another one.
There's only one. There's an OG.
They said that, although my chat said that Rohan, even though he covers the Bucks, likes the Heat more than you do. So that's what you were accused of.
People are gonna hate me on this episode, bro.
Oh, I can't wait, baby.
Listen, I just want to say what an honor it is to be on with the OG Leif. Like, I feel like the Miami Heat media community here doesn't start without you, doesn't start without the Nuggets. I mean, I've known you since you weren't even using your real name. You know, now you're official. I get it. Just a little corporate. I respect it, but no, I'm thrilled, man. I'm thrilled. This is a squad we have right here.
It's a great show, and I couldn't think of any other people I'd want to talk about. Kind of putting last night into historical context, because I thought what we saw made a lot of us feel a lot of different ways. And before we get into that, the other thing that makes me feel different ways is the Miami gaming parties. Because you deserve a customized gaming experience, Miami Gaming Parties delivered private video game tournaments for gamers and their lucky guests. It's truly custom. You pick the game from the package to black tie to premium. For 8 to 16 people, they bring it all. Everything from PS5s to trophies for the winners. Play at home or at a venue of your choosing with free on-site consultation. Perfect for birthday parties, bachelor parties, anniversaries, corporate events, or anything you want to celebrate. Like we're celebrating today, that Jimmy Butler 56 performance. You can check them out at MiamiGamingParties.com for more information. On Twitter at Gaming Parties. On Instagram at Miami_Gaming_Parties. Or search Miami Gaming Parties on Facebook. Go give Colin and his team over there a look at what they have, because they really do incredible stuff. Much like what Jimmy did last night, boys. Leif, I'm going to start with you, man. I watched a first round, a game 4 at home in the first round, and it had me feeling ways that I think only conference finals and finals games have ever made me feel. And it got me thinking. I'm like, I make fun of the Knick fans for being out in the streets celebrating, being up 3-1 against Cleveland. I'm like, dog, it's the first round. Act like you've been there before. And Life has a funny way of working out that they give us maybe the best basketball game I've ever seen a Heat player play. It is certainly in that conversation, no doubt, up there with Dwyane, game 3, LeBron game 6, Jimmy game 6. The laundry list goes on and on. Leif, I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about a first round game like this, because it certainly did not feel like a first round game. The level of basketball was not of a first round series, and I don't want to get ahead of myself by being like, is this a pantheon performance?
I love that you're going to the highest places with it, because from a pure hoops perspective, like if we're just talking about, you throw all the other bullshit that comes along with basketball, the narratives that I push, I know I do it, and then all of the other crap that surrounds the game, and you just talk about hooping. You can't say that this game is not one of the absolute masterclass Miami Heat games ever. I'm talking ever, including the regular season games that eclipsed what Jimmy scored. I mean, you could go back to a Sunday afternoon in '94. Glenn Rice had 56 against Orlando. That's how far I'm going back with these high-scoring games. LeBron 60, what was it? 60, 61 against the
Charlotte.
Bobcats.
Yeah.
Then you flip to the playoffs. Some of the top scoring LeBron playoff game in Miami was in 2014, and I didn't even really remember it. It was against Brooklyn, and he had 49. I'll just say this about it. One, because this season has been so difficult for Heat fans emotionally, spiritually, probably even physically, it's like hard to get out of bed when you've watched some of these home losses to lottery teams throughout the year. It felt really good for that reason, but also because the Bucks you feel like they're whole. And so it feels like a win that nobody can say, well, he wasn't out there or something, you know what I'm saying? Like that. So it's like, it was a validation kind of moment, but also Jimmy Butler individually was just doing stuff. He was unconscious, and it's greatness at the level of what we saw from Dwyane and LeBron. And I just can't believe we're saying that, because all things considered, I knew Jimmy Butler was great before you got here. If you told me in his 4 years he would do LeBron James level shit throughout those runs, I would have told you, that
Multiple
sounds like
times.
a little bit of hope trafficking. And here we are.
Rohan, I thought Leif said it best. It was that kind of greatness and performance that you compare to the guys that put the banners up in that arena. And there's that shot of Pat Riley after, Jimmy hits that step back shot. It was on the other wing, the one he missed against Boston. And he takes that step back, toe on the line, really long jumper, hits it, starts doing the Dwyane Wade, except goes, this is my shit. And the camera cuts to Riley, and he's just looking up, I presume at the banners, like just soaking in this moment. And it felt, bro, it just felt scripted. I don't even know what to say.
There's so many ways to unpack this. First and foremost, I was literally on the phone with my brother right after the game, debating whether or not this was the greatest performance in Heat playoff history. And to Leif's point, if you just consider who was on the floor, I think that's the argument for why Jimmy's was the best. Because you think about what LeBron did or what Wade did, whether it's 06 or during the Big Three runs. Those teams were talented. Those teams had expectations. Those teams were supposed to win. We're talking about a guy who had to get into the playoffs through the play-in. His second best scorer is out. I'm not been the biggest Hero fan, but they need him in a series like this. This is an incredibly thin team, like you mentioned, going up against the number one overall seed in the NBA. The consensus, maybe not consensus, but I would say the vast majority of people believe going up against the best player in the NBA. A team with possibly 3 all-defense players, and he has that performance. I think the degree of difficulty, it was the highest degree of difficulty 50-point game any Heat players ever had. The highest degree of difficulty, when we're comparing these upper echelon playoff performances, I don't think there was one that was more difficult than Jimmy. You might say LeBron was on the road. LeBron had all this pressure. That pressure was because of how good the Big Three teams were. That pressure was because they blew a 2-0 lead to go down 3-2. This is Jimmy going up against an overwhelming favorite. And this is where people are going to get really upset with me. I thought Milwaukee was going to sweep this series. And the biggest reason why was they are way better than Miami on both ends of the ball during the regular season, right? We have this incredibly large sample size that shows that Milwaukee has been better than the Heat. The Heat in the second half of the season aren't the one thing that they're good at defense. They're not playing defense well anymore. Milwaukee is a size advantage. Milwaukee is Giannis. They also, and this is where every shot Miami's taking in this series is a shot Milwaukee wants them to take.
It's so true.
Milwaukee is not doubling Jimmy Butler because they're like, Jimmy Butler shot 8 threes. That's great. Sign me up. They're like, Jimmy Butler shot only 3 times in the restricted area and everything else was a mid-range pull-up. Yeah, sign me up. Milwaukee would have signed up for every shot Miami's taken in this series so far. Milwaukee would have signed up for it. And to me, the really incredible part about this series, what I hope people appreciate is it has defied logic. It's defied rational thought. It's defied the eye test. It's defied analytics. However you consume basketball, whether you're a stat nerd, whether you're a film person, however you watched it, no sane person could have watched the regular season and said the Heat would be up 3-1 right now. And that's even with Giannis hurt. And to me, what's incredible about that is it's because of Jimmy Butler, who I wrote this for Sports Illustrated today. He, to me, is by far the best player in the postseason right now. There are a lot of games left. Maybe someone can overtake him. But right now, what he's doing is genuinely unbelievable. It is so far, it's not even playoff Jimmy. I know we're like, oh, he gets better in the playoffs. This is not just getting better in the playoffs. This is going to a level that if I'm a Bucks fan, I'm probably watching these games like in complete shock, in complete confusion over what I'm seeing, because that's how little sense this series is made. And Jimmy deserves all the credit for the work he's put in. I was talking to someone close to Jimmy the other day, and I was like, don't you get a little bit nervous about how much he works out on his off days in between games? Why is he working so much during the playoffs at a time when players value rest and recovery? He's working up a sweat on his off days in the gym. And I think the series is just a testament to how much work he puts in on his game.
And Ro, to piggyback off that, we had Ethan Skolnick live on the floor on Hangover Time last night, and Ethan said, hey, for all the shit that we gave Eric Spoelstra and the organization for resting Jimmy's on back-to-backs, for not playing him big minutes in games that we felt that they had to win, it was for this. It was so that he could look like this. And I mean, you've even heard Ty Lue say about Kawhi, it's like, we rest him for moments like this, and Kawhi is unfortunately again hurt, and Jimmy has stayed in shape, during a time where I know the organization isn't too happy about the way that teams practice. Rohan, he does put the work in, even when the team when the team is not by like a work function, right? He's doing it on his own, and he's put the work in his body. And listen, I thought he was going to be limited after the glute, or as Tiffany Meek says, he broke his ass. I was worried, and I even tweeted, because I was like, oh, he's not going to the rim, he doesn't look like himself, and I tweeted, he looks limited, and I'm worried. He literally postered Giannis the second I hit send.
Keep tweeting.
Postered a defensive player of the year, a 2-time MVP, the savior of Milwaukee, and a guy that was playing awesome. And I just, man, Reggie Miller said, guys don't do this. Like, it's only Dwyane and LeBron. Said that on the broadcast, or he said Dwyane specifically. He's like, I'm getting Dwyane Wade vibes. To invoke that name from the fan base, and it wasn't just Reggie. It's like the fans. It's like, yo, I don't know if I've seen Dwyane. Other than 06, I don't know that Dwayne's done this. And Leif, we talked pregame, pre-show. We saw Dwyane score the 46 and yell at his hand. With really an even lesser cast.
I will just submit Dwyane Wade's Game 4 against Boston in 2010, which I think is personally the best game he's ever played. I've voiced that opinion to him. That's a forgotten game in Heat history because they lost that series 3-1.
Oh, he was
in part because Paul Pierce had an insane game winner over Darrell Wright.
Because remember, Dwyane rolled his ankle to play before.
Yeah. But Dwyane Wade Game 4 2010. It's not this, but that was. I just want to submit that when we talk about these games.
Yeah.
Remember who was
on
because
it's 3-1 in a 1-8 situation, the stakes change, and that's where Jimmy. Because I thought through that we all went through the Rolodex of all the great games, and LeBron in Boston obviously is going to always have a spot because it was like for the build, right? But Rohan touched on it earlier. Like, they put themselves in that position. This is a completely different type of pressure and expectation level, and Heat fans needed this shit. Like, this season of parity, what I've noticed on social media is every fan base has a level of discontent because they all think they should be better because they're not used to being so closely tied. And Heat fans felt that in a really strong way because they even regressed. So I think part of what you're also seeing is Heat fans trying to enjoy a moment while they have one. And the season was extended for moments like this. Like, there's no other reason for the Heat to all logic as Rohan said, would have told you they probably would have been better off with a chance in the lottery. But then you see shit like this and you know why they always try to play to win.
Dog, I love that you said that, and I saw this on Twitter last night. It was by @Mike Sanchez, and he said, I shat on the Heat plenty this year. Think we all did. But when it really comes to it, again, they're the team that's there for us.
Hey, listen, at the end of the day, like, you know, I think I told some people, like, I would never root for them to lose. I don't like watching teams play for the lottery generally. And, you know, if they'd lost that Bulls game, would I have been terribly upset? No, because the season was just a drag. But something that, again, I just hope fans appreciate is even if the team, they have a season like this where it's frustrating, you could say
Miserable.
They're not good. You know, they have Jimmy Butler, they're not meeting expectations. They compete every single night. Like, they have a chance every single night. And to me, it's like that is on a season to season basis. Obviously, everyone wants championships, you want deep playoff runs, but don't take it for granted that the team is actually trying to win every single night. You know, from top down, from Pat Riley to Spo to the players on the floor, even when they're playing the Highsmiths and the Struces of the world. I mean, how the Highsmith minutes last night I thought were fantastic considering
Incredible.
the circumstances. Like, I know people are frustrated with the season, but this is to me, this is also a result of what happens when they talk about it. I know for some people it's annoying, but they mean it when they say that they live in a competitive culture. Like, this is an organization that welcomes competition. The fact that Spo was like, I like the plan, you know what I mean? Like, that is indicative of the fact that he just wants to compete. And to me, that's a real hallmark of this organization. The fact that no matter the circumstances, they are trying to win every year.
They're not for everyone, and they say that themselves. And think of the guys who have stepped up their play from regular season and out. You know, Jimmy has done so. Caleb Martin, who was very good in the regular season, has just been. I mean, I was tweeting the numbers, and bro, we've talked about this on Twitter. They literally cannot survive when he sits. He has to play. He's been he has been just otherworldly. Just doing all the little things, the defense, the shooting, which, you know, he's been a pretty good, not great shooter. They're minus 31 net rating in the 80 minutes that Caleb Martin has sat this series. So, I mean, guys like him.
One thing I'll say is Caleb's got to play 40 minutes from here on out, or at least 35. And he can't be under 30. He was under 30, and I think he's been under 30 every game this series. Maybe game 2 he played a little bit more, but it's just to me, it's I don't understand why he's playing so little. I understand that you need something from the bench, and you know, I understand why you can't put Lowry and Caleb in, because in the bench, I mean, you're just going to get absolutely hammered in those minutes. It's been a tough series for Gabe. I also think Gabe's in an incredibly difficult position guarding Chris Middleton. He's giving up so much size. You could see the amount of effort that he is expending on that end of the floor. So, but to me, even if he's not starting, Caleb has to play 35. And Gianni, can we just talk about Kyle Lowry making
You beat me to
big
it.
play after big play in the fourth quarter? The strip that gave Jimmy the dunk, the steal on Drew, the defense.
He had another
I know
steal
Jimmy
late.
had the 56, but he's right. It really was a
Look at him sneaking that in.
it truly was a team effort. Yeah,
He had like 4
It truly
assists.
was a team effort from Highsmith's minutes to Caleb's. Yeah,
In the fourth quarter.
to
The
Caleb's shots to Kyle.
Ga-
It truly took.
Early in the game, Gabe looked like he was getting sped up. He did not look comfortable. He was shooting far more than I would like him to. And I was calling for Kyle to come in and settle them down early. And basically, I wanted them to just play Kyle the whole game. And I
was
know
out
that's
on Gabe.
unrealistic.
I was out on Gabe.
But I
that
felt like this wasn't his night. Sometimes it's not your night.
game. He had
And,
8 assists, though, which was I looked at
That's
the
true.
box
I went
score,
back and looked at that.
and I was like,
it
where
did
did
not feel like
he had
that.
like 5 or 6 turnovers, though. I mean, he was off, but you know, Siobhan
Gotta
loves,
be
you know,
some Jimmy stuff.
Bond loves Gabe, but I mean, I rewatched the game. I was mad at his shot selection, like watching. I rewatched it. It wasn't as bad as I remembered. It was a lot of late clock, Like, okay, well, somebody has to. And he got good looks that I think are makeable for him. I just think that he
Shooting
handles too
well.
much. And they run, I don't know if you guys have seen this, they run this Spain pick and roll for him like 10 times throughout the series. And I'm like, why do they keep doing this? They like run in action. It's the
Gabe is shooting a lot. Yeah. I do think, and I think Cooper Moorhead's pointed this out. Everyone loves Coop, who's a legend.
shout out
I
to
think there's
Clutch
something to be
Games.
said about they know that Gabe is getting an open look pretty much every time they run a pick and roll with him. They know he's going to get space, he's going to get the drop, and he's going to have the midi or the floater. Now, again, the Bucks would love if Gabe Vincent shot every possession, but I think part of that is because they know the Bucks are just going to concede certain shots.
At what point does that change? Like, at some, and that's kind of what I want to get to as well.
They have to trap Jimmy. Yeah.
I was just gonna say that,
But
they're gonna try to keep.
And they were killed for it. I mean, they were running early in the game. They tried to get the ball out of his hands, and they kind of did an empty corner pick and roll for Jimmy and Love flares to the corner. And really, Giannis kind of shoots that gap. Middleton or Drew, whoever's on him, goes over the screen, and Jimmy gets off the ball early, and he gives it a Love, who's open. There's no help coming. He gets an open three. They do it again. They trap, and Jimmy kind of goes to the basket. That kind of goes nowhere. They run it again, and Jimmy gets a dunk on Giannis because this time Love flares to the corner, not the top of the key, so it's an easier pass. Giannis kind of does that hesitation like, oh, fuck, I got to go to Kevin. Wait, I got to go back to Jimmy. Giannis is so incredible that he was able to recover. He's truly a mutant of I've never seen before. And, I mean, that's kind of what's going to happen, but I agree, Ro. I think late they have to trap him. At the very least, I think they have to try to switch Lopez, or I mean, he was cooking Middleton, and he was asking for that matchup. And then when the Bucks stopped conceding that switch, he just cooked Drew, and they got him off the ball. They kind of got him off the ball.
Lowry's screening was awesome.
Oh, it was big time. It was so Duncan as well. I mean, Duncan still, it's a fire drill when he comes off a screen. There are times that he has 3 Bucks crowding him, you know, because they're so scared of, and he's been sensational, and they don't run anything for him, which I kind of want them to. But yeah, I don't know, Leif, where do you sit with what the Bucks can do on Jimmy? Because if they do trap him, I guess I don't feel great about that if I'm Miami, because now I have to depend on our shot making, which has been good, but at some point, you know, the ride has to end, right?
That's why I'm glad they got 3 shots at this, eliminating the Bucks. You know what I mean? They needed that buffer of getting both in Miami. And I call it a buffer because it's a small one, but Game 5 is going to be an avalanche of that team probably shooting a lot better, and the Heat. It's going to be essentially a situation where Jimmy, I think they're going to say anyone but him. And so maybe it gets to be a Max Strus. We haven't had a Max Strus I guess we have had a Max Strus game. We need another Max Strus game.
Did we have a Max game in the play-in?
Game 3, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
We
haven't had one in a while. Perfect. If it makes you have to jog your memory, we need a Max game. And Jimmy's a willing passer. I could totally see him. Like, they know what's coming. It's just a matter of guys making shots. I hate to simplify it to that degree, but like that is essentially that. And so maybe it'll be Heat in 6. And just for the record, Rohan, I called Heat in 7.
I saw that pick, which also
guts. No,
but that also makes no sense. So now they're going to lose 2 in a row and then go to Milwaukee in Game 7 and win that one.
That kind of would be par for the course.
I'll say this. The shooting has been so absurd. I don't think the Heat are out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination. You're going to hear all these stats. The Bucks have never won while trailing 3-1. Teams winning 3-1 have a 95% winning percentage. You need to throw all that out of the window, because this series, like I said, it's defied every statistic. It's defied every analytic, defied the film. So I think it's going to be, if Game 4 was difficult, like this is going to be, as Spo likes to say, 10x to close this team out. To close out Giannis. Giannis went down 2-0 in the NBA Finals and then came back with a vengeance on a knee that was twisted into the phantom zone. He came back and led this team to 4 straight wins. If anyone is not scared, it's him. So I think it's going to be an absolute bear for Miami to close this out. And I'll just say this about the doubling in terms of Milwaukee's adjustments. I'm interested to see what they do, because generally they're a team that I think less than any other kind of contender strays from their defensive principles. They're not a team that's going to give you multiple coverages necessarily. They're great at what they do, and they've been historically great at it, and they've just run into a buzzsaw. Yeah. So it's going to be very interesting, because if they do start doubling and trapping Jimmy, that is a change for them. And I think they have the personnel to do it, but it's a difficult switch to make this late in the series. But at the same time, if you're the Bucks, do you want Jimmy shooting the ball, or do you want to see if Caleb is going to knock down big shots on the road in Game 5?
Leif, you're smiling. So like I'm looking at the matchup, and I'm like, one of the things I thought they might do is bring Lopez more to the level, but they brought Giannis up to the level, and Jimmy 5 of 6 on Giannis last night, absolutely cooked him. And again, it was all on jumper. It was step back jumper, this and that. And Rose right. Maybe the Bucks look at that film and say, let's bet that he won't do it again. But at some point, who's going to blink?
He gonna do it again.
And it reminds me of the Spurs series that Miami won. And it was like, okay, well, we're going to make sure that Tim Duncan doesn't go off. And then eventually Spo blinked and was like, okay, never mind. We're doubling Duncan, or we're giving Bosh some help. I'm sorry. It was the opposite. It was like, okay, well, we need to close out on these shooters because Gary Neal and Danny Green and these guys are absolutely killing us. Chris, you need to fall on the sword. And listen, Duncan got his. Chris,
Tim Duncan.
Chris held up, but Miami was able to kind of limit performances from other guys, and they were able to kind of eke out that Game 6 and Game 7, because it wasn't until Game 6 that Spo made that adjustment. So sometimes it takes a while for a coach to be like, okay, well, I've seen enough. I'm not letting, you know what I mean? Suppose like I'm not letting Gary Neal beat me anymore. So yeah, that's so I know Bucks Twitter's, reeling, and like Rohan said, it's like, how could you watch that and not just like, what the fuck is going on?
Imagine if the Heat
end
were on the other side of this. Imagine if the Heat were the 1 seed when they had LeBron,
gosh.
and someone's just going off, and a team that didn't shoot, a team that was in the bottom
the Knicks
third
with Melo
offense,
or something.
Yeah. Like imagine if they come in and been like, hey, we the only offense we were better than were teams that were tanking, and we have this guy who's really, really good, but it would just be, you would be irate. Like if this was happening to your team, you'd be, throwing your laptop up against the wall every night. Like, how is this happening?
It's crazy, dude. I just can't believe it. So Miami, the way they've defended Giannis, especially last night, in the Game 1, they were Bam in single coverage. They were dropping on Giannis pick and rolls. If it was Middleton or whatever, they drop. Last night was kind of interesting. So they kept Bam on him a lot of the time. Eventually they moved Jimmy onto him, and they moved Jimmy onto Brook as well, which I thought was the last kind of adjustment that Spo made was, with that lineup of Duncan, Caleb, Lowry, Bam, and Jimmy. Jimmy was on because they tried Caleb on Brook Lopez, and that just went really bad. They were being very aggressive on Giannis on pick and rolls. They spammed Giannis Lopez pick and roll a lot. Middleton was the other guy that got a lot of on-ball reps. Holiday was practically invisible that fourth quarter, other than some turnovers in that one above the break 3 that he hit. So Miami,
that 3 was nuts.
That was crazy. That reminded me of Tony Parker's 3 in the finals.
Tony Parker, yep.
I was like, oh, fucking hell, bro. But they effectively took him out of the game, which I think was the goal after Game 2 was, okay, no more Drew Holiday, which credit to them. I think they've done a great job of that. So now they focus on, okay, well, Giannis had 13 assists, and they were pretty much trapping or stepping up on that pick and roll every time. I wonder if they do that again. They opted to switch late, and he stopped getting the assists and he became more of a scorer. I think the other card Milwaukee has to play is him as a screener, because I have yet to see Miami answer that call, because that's going to get complicated when you're just like, okay, fuck it, Middleton, Giannis pick and roll, and if you're going to drop this, Middleton's going to have an open 3 at home every time. And
Jimmy's going to have to pick him up, or Caleb, and they're going to have to switch. It's the only way.
Yeah.
It's the only remotely possible way.
It's crazy. I was talking to someone close to the team, and they mentioned how they will live with with everything Brooke Lopez has gotten in this series. They like
Bro,
that,
Brooke had
that's
36 and 11. If Bam had that Brooke game last night, we'd be in
No
the streets right
ceiling!
now.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I would still be outside screaming somewhere. But
Yeah.
I found that interesting that like they can live with Brooke Lopez beating them, and so it'll be interesting to see how they now defend Giannis, because that was kind of like said when Giannis was not in the game, and now so it was a different tune last night, but he still showed up. I'm interested to see what they do with Giannis specifically, because I almost like him better when he is trying to score. I don't know if that sounds right. There's something about those 3-point shooters getting hot that that Avalanche in game 2, I have PTSD about.
That's a good point. That's a good point, because the way the Heat help off of him, if those shooters get a rhythm, they're it's an interesting point, Leif. It really is.
A couple of things. I thought Milwaukee did a great job of manipulating the low man, and I thought that's why ultimately that was really why I thought Gabe was unplayable in big minutes, because he just provides. He's just not a help guy. He's an on-ball guy, and there's just nothing he can do. Giannis, he doesn't hold the line well either. And if Giannis is in transition, that has to be Caleb, Bam, Jimmy, and they're so good at kind of walling off. Even if Lowry's the low man, and we know that, and he, he's small too, but I think at least he can kind of force a strip or something. So at least you have you get anything. But I think that's another thing to watch for, kind of how Milwaukee kind of manipulates that last help man off Giannis drives or whatever. Milwaukee got Giannis off the ball, and they would run like Middleton, Brook action, and then have Giannis cut in, which is really stealing what Spo did to get Jimmy in the middle of the lane without having a ball handle. So, Milwaukee has adjusted, through this matchup. So they're going to throw the whole kitchen sink. But I will say this. I thought Miami came out to that Atlanta game, and they were as unprepared as I've ever seen an Eric Spoelstra team. That is not the case in this series. They have been ready for everything. They've had an answer for everything. Milwaukee does something, they have an answer, and those guys, they may not be as brilliant as kind of that 2012 team with Shane and Ray and LeBron and Dwyane, that those are just my basketball geniuses. This team,
they're definitely not.
They're not, but I will say they have been very intelligent. They have run everything that they've been asked to do, and to retain all those different coverage, because they have a different coverage for this pick and roll, for that pick and roll. We switch this, we don't switch this. And if you look on the Bucks end, they're fucking confused. Like, I tweeted out a play where Duncan does a DHO from Caleb, and they had Jimmy kind of out behind the 3-point line. They got all confused. Joe Ingles ran into Bobby Portis, and Bobby Portis had to push Joe Ingles to defend Jimmy Butler, which then he pushed Joe Ingles into Jimmy Butler, and it was a foul.
Yeah.
So it's tough, man. It's tough, and this series is going to be a dogfight. Man, are you guys? Do you guys think they win Game 5?
No.
I don't want to put you on the spot. I know it's tough. I don't know, man. But Milwaukee's favored by 11.5.
I'm not betting against Jimmy, but I understand why every logical human is going to take Milwaukee.
He's going to be sore at some point, isn't he?
And I also don't like that quick turnaround on Game 4 and 5.
The 1 day between. Yeah.
The schedule has been so wonky for the entire league.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother podcast. But
Real
I'll just
quick,
say this.
Is Bam
I'm
okay?
done doubting Jimmy, so I'm not going to say that they can't get it done.
I think Bam's got multiple injuries. I think it's the hip. I think it's the hamstring.
Yes.
The
and
tendonitis that he always
Bam.
deals with.
I don't have time to go into my full Bam rant right now, but people don't know what they want. It's like, oh, why isn't Bam shooting? And it's like, he's going up against Brooke Lopez, who's like one of the best defenders of his position in the league. And then they're like, Bam's not making enough shots. So it's like, well, you wanted him to be aggressive. Now he's being aggressive against this 7'2" guy who's great at the rim. Like, that's what he does best. It's just, they don't win that game without Bam making huge stops in the fourth quarter. Once again, everything he does defensively. I get it. It was frustrating that he was not stepping up while Jimmy was having that night. We all want him to score 20 points. This is a tough matchup for a lot of centers in this league, and especially for a team that's as offensively challenged as Miami is. It's not going to be easy for a Bam against a team like Milwaukee.
I will say this. While not that Brooke Lopez has been a target, but he's been shredded by Jimmy, and you can't say the same about Bam. He's done a great job on every buck he's defended. He and Jimmy have guarded 1 through 5, whether that's Holiday through Lopez, and he's just been incredible at that. So at least he's giving you something on defense, and I don't think he'll have an explosiveness to do anything at the rim this series, but you kind of hope you get one series where he hits 7 of 10 jumpers, and we call it a night.
Well, like he did in game 2 or game 1 of the Bucks series. What was he, 8 of 11 in the second half?
Yeah, those games.
So
one of those. We're saving for the Knicks series. That's okay too.
Cavs in 7. That's another series that I don't really get. But game 5 is tomorrow, 9:30 start. Adam Silver's never seeing heaven. I don't know why that's happening, but regardless, had to get the Lakers on TV, I guess. We will see you tomorrow for pregame, and we got hangover time after the game. Make sure to check out all the offerings at SI over at 5 Reasons. I know, Leif, you're doing a lot of playbacks, so if you want to hang out with Leif and the crew over there, it's a fun time. It's more personal than Nikias' playbacks. Nikias is too smart. You want to hang out with the boys.
I get much looser on those than I do on our podcast.
Fewer dad jokes that Steve Jones and Nikias are making. So if you want a little reprieve from that, check out Leif's playback. And Rohan wrote a great article on SI about Jimmy's kind of night. Rohan, incredible as always. I know. Do you have anything to plug? Any work you have on the way that you want people to be on the lookout for?
I have something when it's the Heat's official last game, and hopefully that won't be for another couple months.
In June, you mean?
I got something yes, in June. I have something about Udonis that I'm going to go ahead and say was my favorite story that I've gotten to do in my life. It was truly the highlight of my career, so I'm excited to share that one when the time comes.
Be on the lookout. That's the best basketball writer in America, folks, so be on the lookout. Rohan is... Truly, we say Jimmy's one of one. And Miami's spoiled in so many ways. I mean, I've talked a lot about the fact that we've gotten to see Alonzo, Timmy, Dwayne, Shaq, LeBron, Jimmy, all these guys. Look at Miami in terms of writers. We've had Dan, we've had Rohan. We're truly blessed to have these great people represent our cities. Ethan, I don't want to give Ethan credit, but Ethan was a phenomenal writer when he actually used to write. Although my chat said last night that Ethan looked like a WWE manager with the fucking shirt and the lanyard. I was dying, dude.
Oh, man.
Leif's laughing because it's true.
That's a great way of ending this show.
Great way. We love you guys. See you tomorrow for pregame and hangover time for Game 5. Heat and 5, baby. Remember to check out our store for Heat and 5 shirts and Casey Bannerman's new Jimmy Butler jersey. Don't miss out. Check on our Twitter. Those are one of a kind. They don't go on sale again. Ask people that have missed out. Check at Miami Heat Beat to see that offering, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.